What's up, everybody? My name is Joshua Yoder, and welcome to the Joshua Yoder Show. Today, my guest, is my friend and mentor about writing, Kenny Varner. What's up, Kenny?
Hey, thanks for having me back. It's great to be here.
No, man, absolutely. Thank you so much for doing this, Kenny. And today's topic, I figured this fits perfectly for you and me, as yes, as the month of October is now among us. It's the horror movie season.
Mhm.
Yes, an underrated genre, in my humble opinion.
Oh yeah, yeah, most definitely. And
And
definitely underrated in my household because I'm like one of only one that really likes horror movies. So it's good to talk to somebody that appreciates good horror.
well, it's legitimate storytelling, and I don't know
Mhm.
why. It's kind of one of those things for me when it comes to horror. Like, there's stuff like there's horrible things happening in real life, but yet nobody seems to like want to talk about it. But then when it happens in like movies or something, it's like bad.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
I
Well,
think. What was that?
no, I was just agreeing with you. Yeah, it's totally.
But yeah. To before we get to talking about this, a little fun fact about horror, the the genre itself has had ancient history with roots in like folklore, religious traditions. They usually focus on death, the afterlife, evil, the demonic, the principles of things embodied, like embodied in the person. And usually sometimes they involve stuff like demons, witches, vampires, there's werewolves, ghosts, you name it. And some of them has gone as far back as ancient Greece to ancient Roman, Egypt, a lot of stuff. So horror's been around for a very long time.
Most definitely. A lot of it has to its roots in the Day of the Dead, which was an old I think it was English or a European holiday by the was a pagan holiday, I believe it was, and it was it started out as a celebration of the the crops and the harvest of the crops, and then I believe it was um, oh gosh, I can't remember what it was, but it started out as a celebration to keep evil spirits from cursing the crops and the end of a celebration for the harvest.
That's pretty awesome.
Mm.
Um, and honestly, some of the old, ancient legends of the back in the day, I'm surprised stuff like that hasn't been explored more. But you never know nowadays.
Yeah, and
But
you get to see pieces of it like Children of the Corn. Um, uh, if you ever seen the movie Trick or Treat, it kind of it delves into that a little bit. Um, so yeah, it is very interesting the backgrounds and stuff that some of these the Halloween traditions and horror in itself.
no, absolutely. But let's get to talking about why we love horror. And I guess my first question to you, Kenny, is what was your introduction to horror?
It's funny. I was, I believe, 5 or 6 years old, um, and I used to like going and looking in the newspapers and looking at what the movie posters. And about the summer of '75 or '76, not sure which one it was. I think it's '76. Jaws had first come out, and to a little kid like that, to see a poster like you know as scary as that, I remember getting chills and wanting to see it. And that was after watching it, I was hooked on. Some people say that's more of a drama, but I say that's horror. If it scares you, it's horror.
And
So that was my introduction.
no, that's awesome. And before I mentioned what my introduction to horror was, let's talk a little bit about Jaws. That thing's 50 years old now.
I know it's hard to believe, isn't it? It's
Yeah, my parents didn't even meet each other yet when this movie first came out.
Uh, that makes me feel old. So, um, yeah, that to me that is the perfect movie. Um, Now I could have done without part three and part four. You know, those they just kind of ruined the whole series for me. But parts one and two were awesome. And like you said, this year's the 50th anniversary, and they brought it back to theaters, and it's still proven money winner because it in one weekend I think it grossed over $10 million. So you know, it's still going strong. People are still watching it, and there's a lot of Jaws fans out there. That's for sure.
Well, no, absolutely. Like for me personally, like it still holds up even after 50 years. So you know it's a good movie.
You know, I've watched it so many times now. Like when you first start watching it, you're scared and it gives you nightmares and you have dreams about it. But once you've watched it as many times as I have, sometimes whenever you're stressed out or you need to get to sleep, you go to an old friend and you put it in, and you know you can basically watch it while you're sleeping with you know running it through your head after seeing it so many times. So um, for me now, that's a go-to whenever I need to get some sleep.
Well, I still can't get that. I still can't get that song, the music they play, you know, when the shark's coming. That's gets stuck in my head for a while.
I don't know about you, but when I was a kid and I was swimming and you're in a swimming pool, you know, one of your biggest fears is shark coming up. It was just, you know, one of those things when you were little like that. It's like, oh, you know, you knew the shark wasn't there, but you were scared to do a jump in because you're afraid of a shark coming up and getting you. Um, you know, that's in your head. But I still, to this day, one of the unfortunate things about watching that movie is when I go to the ocean, I only go into about ankle deep. I don't have the willingness to want to go out even into waist deep water. So that has ruined it for me. But you know,
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I mean, the idea of a shark coming out and you're just trying to mind your own business and just be out in the ocean.
I don't know if you know it or not, but that's based on a group of true stories. Um, there was a shark attack back in 19, 1918, 1919, where a shark actually got into a creek, Matawan Creek in New Jersey, which is a freshwater creek, and ended up killing, I guess, four or six people in just a matter of a couple days. It was crazy.
Holy mackerel! I mean,
Yeah,
I thought the story of making the movie itself was insane, but that's even crazier.
it was in New Jersey, Matawan. The creek was called Matawan Creek. Now, of course, it started out as the shark. The first couple of shark attacks were in the ocean, but once that they stopped letting swimmers in, I guess the shark got hungry and went up through one of the regular creeks. Now they're not sure to this day if it was a great white or bull shark, but it actually attacked a couple kids in fresh water, which is really weird. So
Yeah, that's usually not where you see sharks in freshwater.
no, no. Scary
Jeez.
enough the ocean, then you got to worry about the.
Yeah, right.
Mm.
But yeah, but my introduction to horror was back in the 90s. I was kind of like I said, I was kind of more into the gothic stuff with the movie The Crow. That was kind of my first time. And another one was actually a TV series called Tales from the Crypt Keeper. Do you remember that show, Kenny?
I remember that. Yep, I've seen me.
Yeah, no, it's like I love that show and the stories they told and some of the most, you know, scary things as a kid. And even though also like I said, I mentioned The Crow. That was kind of like the whole gothic horror of like the whole idea of, you know, just living in like such a horrible area, like it was set in. and then like the idea of like resurrection and like coming out for revenge and just like holy moly, it just kind of blew me away, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
Alrighty.
that was a good movie. I watched that a couple of times myself. Oh,
Yeah, I got the DVD and the graphic novel collection as well.
nice.
Yeah, no, and I've always just also grew up around the time of the Friday the 13th and the and all Nightmare on Elm Street. Those movies were a huge part of me growing up as well, because there was a lot of movies like that coming out back in the day.
Yeah, yeah. I was too. I actually was hooked from the very beginning in the first one. I was one of the first real horror movies, rated R movies I was able to see. That and The Shining, they were kind of about the same time. And the first couple Friday the 13th were really awesome. They kind of lost their touch after the final chapter, but I still watch them. I mean, I still watch those, and um, but the ones with Sean Cunningham um, directing them was awesome.
How many of those did he film again?
Well, I know there was a total. If you count, there was 10 of them total. Um, and then there was the Freddy versus Jason, and then there was the reboot a couple years back. But I don't think he had anything to do with the reboot. But um, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he went the whole time through or.
Well, who do you think? Well, what's crazy too about you mentioned Friday the 13th. Many people still to this day, which kind of blows my mind, people don't realize the first actual villain in the Friday the 13th movie was Jason's mom.
Yeah.
Like,
And
I mean,
what I was going to say, yeah, and you know, she was a tough old bird, that's for sure.
well, I mean, understandably so. I mean, she felt like her son, who, it dealt with, disabilities, was died because of negligence, and she went insane, which brings me to my next question for you, Kenny. What do you think of the idea of the TV show that follows, the prequel show that leads up into the first movie?
Oh, I think that have they released that yet? Is it coming out?
I think they're still working on it.
Okay. I think that's great. I'd like to see the backstory. I like to see how creative that people can get and see how close it links up to the original. Um, but yeah, I'm anxious to watch that. I'd like to. There's like I'm anxious to see the one where the prequel to It. That was Derry. Welcome to Derry, I believe, wasn't it? Coming out.
I'm not sure, if I'm being honest. I didn't
Mhm.
even know that was happening. But my concern when it comes to, like, especially nowadays when people are trying to do like prequels to things, they completely go away from the lore, and they completely like change everything. So it kind of ruins like the original movies when they come out.
Oh, I agree. I agree. But if you take sometimes if you step back and you see which way they were going with that, it's like, oh, I can see that, or no way, you have no clue. It's almost like you gotta judge, and just take. You can either watch them and disagree with them and never watch them again, or if you like them, continue. But I really think that it's kind of cool and creative to see what people think nowadays to compare to when the movie first came out, and what they were thinking.
Yeah, no, I definitely see your point in that one. But I think also too, and I yeah, I can't even talk today. but
Mhm.
But yeah, no, that's kind of also I wanted to discuss with you about as well, Kenny. the different styles of like horror. Like, do you think horror, like, for me, it seems like most horror movies nowadays is more like a slasher horror, or like they just decapitate somebody, or like they just do like a weird, like, you know what I mean? It's just like a straight up like murder spree. Where I feel like back in the old days, like, yeah, you might have gotten that, but you also got like a sense of hysteria where like they scare you because they make you think instead of just like
Right.
react. If that makes sense.
But yeah, and I can give you an equation here. If you look at the first Jaws, there was there was kills, but there wasn't the gore involved. But if you look at the shark movies that come out now, they're always showing people getting ripped up and all the gore that's involved. And sometimes, I think that's insulting to the person that's watching it, because I get more scared when I have to use my imagination, than just seeing it. Sometimes they some of these movies they want to see how much gore they can throw at you, and like one of the one of the movies, and I know this is probably going to be um, an unpopular comment here, but I don't know if you've ever seen The Terrifier.
I've heard of it, but I did never watched it.
I watched the first one, and it was disgusting. It wasn't scary. It was like a so let's see how we can get the audience sick. You know, um, they just do too much now. They don't have they don't want to tell a story or keep you in suspense. They just want to smack you in the face with all this blood and guts, and that's not horror in my book.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that because there was a couple of times like some of these newer horror movies where I'm like, they sometimes can get you with like a jump scare, but I'm with you. I think they get way too gory when it didn't need to. It's almost like people have like this weird appetite to like think, oh, like what weirder or like more disgusting way we can have someone get killed in a movie. You know what I mean?
Now, if they have it in a campy way where it's more of uh, a comedic type uh, way, I can understand that. But if you're trying to get a scare out of a person, you know, let them use their imagination. We don't we with all these new technologies and stuff. I sound like the man that get off my lawn, but you know, they, they just you know everything's out there, and they try to go to the utmost extreme so they could get hits or they could get, uh, best thing is, the older movies, in my book, uh, that's where I find that the terror, and the scare tactics they use are like the best.
No, I definitely agree with that, and we can get to the literature part of it here in a minute. But to piggyback what you were saying, remember Dracula?
Hmm?
That movie that came out what 1930, I believe. They made a movie, the original movie, because the book itself came out in 1897 in Ireland, and then they had trying to think of what year that movie came out. But I guess my point I'm trying to make is like here's a movie that was extremely old, like it was, and it's still creepy. And it's like the simplest little things they did, and like you can still feel like a chill going up and down your spine. And it's like, man, like how comes we can't do that today with all this technology and all that stuff?
Definitely.
Like I got to give the performances to what's his name, Bella
Lugosi.
Lugosi. In 1931 was in 1931 was when the movie came out, and his performance as Dracula was absolutely insane. And one of my favorite characters, really ever in any kind of format or genre, is Abraham Van Helsing. I loved the effort. What's his name? Edward Van Sloan as Van Helsing. He did such an incredible job as that character. And I still pick those two as like when it comes to Dracula and Van Helsing characters, but man, like that just still gives me the creeps.
Well, too, is back then the technology wasn't quite caught up, so they had to scare you in the ways that, less is more. When they'd scare you, it wouldn't maybe be the slasher type but when they had to do everything they could to go, over and above to try to do scares, with what they had. And sometimes that turns out to be the more terrifying part, than what we have today.
Well, do you think it's just because they were honest about it too? Now that I think about it, like, do you think they were just honest? Or like, this is what really scares people, where a lot of people, not trying to knock anybody, but like, a lot of people today think they're being scared, but they're really getting messed with. Like, I think it's always going to be like the fear of the unknown is what gets you the most. Anybody.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, I think that's kind of hurt. I think it's a lost art where I think people just don't want to admit that they can be scared, and they think they know what being scared is, and then when they actually face it, they're like, oh no.
Yeah, exactly. Well, off track or nothing, but I know whenever I was growing up, we would go to, when I was in different youth groups or different things, we'd go and say horror stories by the fire. And just that thought that something may be in the woods, and then you'd hear a twig snap, or you hear something, or even one of the other counselors coming out and, out of the woods trying to scare you. That doesn't happen anymore. You don't hear about, people going to these bonfires and talking, and, and to me, those were scary. You were able to paint a picture in your mind of what was going on, just like you would with the old movies. You know what I'm saying?
Man.
Sometimes your own mind is your own worst enemy when it comes to horror. And now everything's just all in your face, and they don't understand why people don't think that's scary. At least us old folks, anyway.
Well, no, I definitely agree with you with that, because I think like people nowadays, I think they're so numb to they watched a Jason movie and they're just trying to find different ways to kill a character off in a movie, right? And then like, would they actually be scared in real life? Would they think like, oh, this just fake? But then like something happens for real, they're kind of like, wait, what? I don't know if I'm making any sense on that one.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know. I just think a lot of people may not realize what actual fear could be,
Right.
Or they do, they just don't want to admit it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about like other like horror movies, at least. Well, first and foremost, let's people talk about like, let's go like even more old school than we are when it comes to horror. Like, I'm talking about like ancient literature. Like there was like this character or in like a French folklore called Bluebeard. Yeah, like it was, and what's scary was it was allegedly based off something real life, where like a rich man would marry all these women, and then all of a sudden like each one of his wives for some reason like died, and many people wondered if it was, which led to believe that it was the husband, that he was killing them all. Like the fact that like some of these old books were based off like ancient legends or like something that happened in real life completely blows me away. Like
right. Yeah.
Like you got to imagine like the idea of like what goes through somebody's head that makes them want to write something like that.
Exactly. Edgar Allan Poe's the biggest example I know. Some of the stuff that he wrote, oh my! I mean, just reading it was scary.
Yeah.
Well,
it's funny you said, I love Edgar Allan Poe, and it's funny you say that because I feel like in a weird way, as weird as this may sound, it's kind of like The Crow for me, where it's like, yeah, it's dark and gothic, but for some reason there's something beautiful out of it. If that makes any sense.
No, yeah, definitely, definitely. And Edgar Allan Poe, he led that life. He was a scary man. He was uh he liked his alcohol, and I think he did a little bit of medication as well. But some of the stuff that he wrote is just classic. The Telltale Heart was probably one of the scariest ones that I've read. Um, yeah, yeah, he was the master of the horror movies. He was, he was the predecessor to Stephen King. I those two are both great horror writers.
Yeah, no,
And
oh yeah. Yeah, like no, I agree because like what Egger was able to do and like Stephen King, it's just like, man, like do you guys see therapy? Like I mean there's like even some of the horror anime I watch, like I don't know if you ever heard of Berserk.
no, no.
It's one of the most messed up things I've ever seen. Like I literally read like the manga and even like watched the anime and then like even the prequel anime movies they made about it. I'm like, holy crap! Like, where do you come up with some of this stuff in your head? Like, I hope and pray that you find some kind of peace,
Yeah.
but man, I mean, I don't want to sound too judgmental because I myself like to write gothic and sometimes I look at myself and I'm like, whoa, okay, didn't think I could come up with that. But no, do you think a lot of people like don't really want to lean to horror as often as because they're afraid of like the human psyche of like, look how dark we can actually be if we're not careful?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think people do. It's a very uh, the times around us, the world we live in, it can be kind of depressing. And people don't want to go to be depressed, and horror movies, if you think about it, they always have characters that you like and you root for them and then they get killed off. And, they, some of the horror movies now do not have happy endings. If they want to have that sequel, they've got to put that little, at the end that they're back, and they kill somebody. So, they want to be, people want to be entertained. They want to laugh. And the horror movies today just aren't, people don't want to go see stuff that's going to have them more upset after they get out of it than before they went to see it. If that makes any sense.
No, I totally get it because like I think people like you said like earlier, like I think people want to be entertained, they want to be scared, but a lot of the stuff isn't as scary as people made it out, or at least they think it is. They think, oh well, if we just you know chop off a couple of body parts or kill people in the most gruesome way possible in these movies, they think that's going to scare people, and most people will be like, dude, this is so unrealistic. So yeah, I get that where like people like something like, and the thing is there's some scary things in real life that could leave like emotional scars or like people can relate to. So I feel like you said, I feel like there is like a lost art to it. Oh, and another guy I forgot to mention, I really enjoy his work, and he's kind of been more of a late bloomer as of late. H.P. Lovecraft. He created almost like a, how do I say this? Like it was almost like his own religion kind of thing with Catholicism. I don't know if you ever read or like did anything with the Call of Cthulhu and all that.
No, actually.
That's some of the stuff that he had written. Holy mackerel! Like again, where is he coming up with this stuff?
Mm-mm.
But no, I really enjoy
Makes you
HP.
wonder.
No, it does because, but I think it's just like the human psyche. I think people that like to write horror or like like us, like horror or goth. It's just like people they're willing to admit, hey, look, there is a dark side to us. Do I think it's something that needs to be controlled in real life? Yes. But I think a lot of people also like in real life, they don't want to admit it, so they try to ignore it, if that makes any sense. Oh, you there, Kenny?
Yep, still here. Yep.
No. But yeah, no, it's like H.P. Lovecraft definitely was doing something like that. And then people like oh gosh, what's his name? When people talk about stories about like Jack the Ripper and all that stuff in real life, like there's real life stuff happening. Like no one.
Yeah,
Oh, go
the
ahead.
Jack the Ripper has uh used so many different times in horror movies over the past 40 or 50 years. And it's that's one of the ones that you like to see how the director is portraying him and what angle he's going at. uh there are so many that each movie is a representation of the director himself. So it's kind of cool to see what one director does and how he goes down the line, and how the next one does it, and the similarities and the differences between them. But yeah, some of those, and a lot of them aren't used. They're not going off the true legend, which is kind of weird, because the legend in itself is well, I guess it's not really a legend, but it's you know what do they say? Stranger than the movies, or
Yes, the truth can be stranger than fiction.
hmm
No, no, absolutely. And another movie I kind of wanted to talk about because actually a couple of them that really like creep me out, but yeah, like, it's in a good way. The first one's The Omen. Like the whole
classic.
concept, yeah, like the whole concept of The Omen itself is like a perfect example of how like you can take a real life thing that people can think about and just like it scares you. Like it scares me. Like obviously it involves like religion and all that stuff, but it's like the whole concept of it is here's this child that people look at him and he's like, well, he's kind of innocent and all that stuff, but people don't realize he's basically the Antichrist. Like he's making people like kill themselves, and they think, well, how can it be this child's fault? And, it's just a child, right?
hmm
It's like, man, that movie just absolutely scared the daylights out of me just because it's something that makes you think, and you're like, man, this is really possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that one in The Exorcist came out about the same time, and that's another scary one. That's something I think that might even be based off a true story. The Exorcist, and that was probably one of the scarier movies I've ever seen in my life.
No, absolutely. And another one that scares me because what's frightening about it is that there are people like this in real life, and that's Silence of the Lamb.
Oh
Following
yeah.
him, yeah, like Hannibal Lecter. Holy crap! Like the fact that there are real life people like him, just like like you would think most people that are like cannibals, right? That you would
Mhm.
think they're just crazy. They just want to eat people. They're just crazy people. This guy's sit down, intelligent. Like he could help, in a weird way, use his genius to better the world. But he's also got this really, really dark side of things.
Yeah, and that was a trilogy, wasn't it? With the Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, and then Hannibal after that. That whole three movie, um, all those three movies, man, I'll tell you, they do put a scare on you, because you can see that character being someone that you would never expect, and
Yeah,
some of the stuff he does.
and I believe that was what Anthony Hopkins that played Hannibal in those movies.
Yeah, yeah.
Tremendous job. I thought,
Mm-hmm.
and like to piggyback what you were saying, like this guy, he looked like he could just be a normal person. he could just be really happy, like, you know, like he just seemed like he's like a good person. But then you see this, you're like, wait, what? It's just, I don't know. You just, not to make people paranoid, but it's like, man, like, what if that's someone like that in real life, you know? And actually, speaking of, you know, people in like real life situations that people can do, look at American Psycho.
I've never seen it, but boy, I want to. Yeah, that's one of those movies that uh I don't know if I could watch or not. Tell me a little bit about it because I've heard stuff, but it looks like a good, scary movie.
It is. It's basically like, here's this guy who's like this super rich guy. He seems like super clean, very charming, you know. And there was two different versions of it. There was the Christian Bale one, and then I think what was
Hmm.
the Albert Hitchcock one. But yeah, basically like this guy is like, he basically what's the word I'm looking for? Like, he's basically like this rich guy who thinks he's got it all under control. He's like a narcissist, and then he comes to find out that you know, like he how do I how do I try to word it? It's like he basically is like, he has like this secret where he goes out and kills people, but nobody can suspect him because he's very clean cut. He's always properly dressed. He's very elegant. He's very like he's very well spoken. He's very like, he just has all this, but then he just has like these weird impulses where he just finds people and just kills them.
Hmm.
I'm just like, man, that's, again, going back to like real life. You can just be hanging out with somebody and he's like the nicest person in the world, but then you come find out like he's like doing like horrible things. I'm like, holy crap. Like, it just, yeah, just, yeah, it's just kind of one of those things, man, where it's like, it's messed up. And it's actually based off a book that came out in 1991. It's just, oh, it was definitely a scary movie, that's for sure. I'm trying to think of her too, like Albert Hitchcock. Albert Hitchcock was another guy that was really good at scaring people. I'm trying to think of what was it? The Birds, was that him?
Yeah, that he had the Birds. He did Psycho with Anthony Perkins. Um, Back in the day, that's where people stopped getting showers for a while because of the shower scene in it. Uh, there's North by Northwest. Um, there was the one, is it called? I think it might be called The Window. It was gosh.
Oh, he did. Oh, geez, he did. He also did a 1922. He's done a couple silent. He's done some silent films as well, which
Oh,
I'm actually real impressed with people that do like like being able to pull off like horror movies back then when you didn't like have anybody really speaking. Like, he did the number 13. He did Champagne, The Farmer's Wife. He did The Ring. Didn't they make a remake of that too, The Ring?
yeah. Well, uh, I'm not sure. Um, there was one with it was called The Ring, but that was where it was more of a ring on the telephone, I believe. That
Okay, and
was
I
what that one was about.
okay, but I want to talk about one of his movies, The Birds. Holy crap! Like, normally when I see birds, I usually see them like just, you know, flying, getting food, you know, heading south for the winter. You know, they're minding their own business. This whole town just, holy moly, just started just absolutely killing. I'm like, holy, like, that came out in 63. And it was like, yeah, was it overly violent? Yeah, it was, but it was like one of those things where like here's like this woman, I think it was like in the telephone booth, and the
Yeah.
birds smash right through and just start pecking at her. And I'm like, holy, just that was scary. That's one of those movies I have a tough time watching sometimes, and I like
Oh
horror.
yeah. Well, what's funny is this is the kind of society we lived in back then. We never paid much attention to it, but they played that in English class when we talked about him and his writing, and Alfred Hitchcock, and his movies and stuff, and they were classics. And we watched that in English class. So um, it was pretty scary, but what was nice, it was broken up into a couple classes, so you get get maybe 45 minutes out of it, and then come back and they'll play it again, the rest of it, and so you never really get the whole scary feeling until you watch it at home. Then you get it.
Well, and before people think like, oh my gosh, why did they show us that when we were kids and all that stuff? It wasn't so much like they were trying to scare us. They were trying to show us like how literature and how storytelling actually works and how it's done correctly. And The Birds was just one of those movies that people showed like, hey, like let's do this, and here's a perfect example of why this works and why this stuff didn't. You know what I mean?
Right, and what he was thinking at this time, and what his intentions were, and the result he got, and broke it down like that. It was all more about the the whole the if I can remember correctly, it was about the three parts of a movie: the beginning, the middle, and then the climax. And he did it so well, you know, with the smooth transitions from, you know, just keeping you on edge, and taking you like on a roller coaster through the different emotions and stuff. Uh, and I think they were trying to show you how what good writing would do. You know, what it's supposed to do, the result.
Yeah, and I think that's also kind of a lost art too. Like people can't get past like to say like the blood in the guts, and they don't realize like there's an actual story to it, like that actually makes sense. Where do you think that's also led to a lot of misconceptions about horror too? Where like people think, oh well, if it's just about blood and guts, let's just do it like that, and then everything's fine. Where like people like watch some of the older movies, they're like, wait, there was an actual story and reasoning behind everything.
Right, right. Well, yeah. I mean, because if you look nowadays, um, horror is getting to the point where they're exhausting anything original. So they're pulling like stuff that we grew up as a kid, like um, Winnie the Pooh, Popeye the Sailor, Mickey Mouse, and they're turning them into horror movies. And it's like, I think right now they're desperate for anything fresh, and that's because they don't have a good story behind it. They'll figure, oh well, we'll let people recognize Winnie the Pooh. They recognize, how are they going to make that into a horror movie? And then when they see it, it's like, I wasted my time on this. You know, um, it's just that they're running out of original ideas, and so instead of sitting there and really trying to think, they just slap stuff on, and a slim storyline behind the blood and the guts.
Yeah, and it's I think it's sad though, really too, though, because I think there are new ways to like scare people, and there's definitely like ideas that can be talked about. But I think people are just, no pun intended, scared to do it because they look at it like, well, we don't want to scare anything because it's too real. I'm like, well, yeah, that's the point. Like, there's a lot of like projects out there, like they talked about, like, say something simple as like talking about the dangers of social media, right? So here they are, like wanting to talk about like how bad and how dangerous social media is making society, but they won't do it. And then even if they did, they don't really go full bore on it. They just be like, oh yeah, just they just don't want to intimidate anybody or scare people into like, thinking. and it's a shame, really, because I think more people would actually like think before they act when if they actually see like, hey, look how bad something can damage somebody just because you had to do something stupid or say something stupid on social media.
Yeah, I agree totally.
And
Um,
oh, go ahead.
oh no, I was just agreeing with you.
But yeah, so and it's kind of I'm trying to think back of another person that I wanted to talk about too. Like people talk about it all the time as well. Like look at the Manson family. People have written horror movies, based off that
Yeah, yeah,
because he was a real scary person.
he was.
And to be honest with you, talk about like base things off real life, which I don't know how I feel about, you know, creating something that actually happened. But remember the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Oh yeah, the original one was scary as heck, and that one was almost an X-rated movie when it first came out because of how the guidelines back then were very tight, and all the gore back then, you know, um, yeah, it had actually the whole nation cringing. It was they used to call that the scariest movie ever made back in the 70s. Now that's changed since then, but yeah, whenever people wanted to say something about being scared, and it's like they say, yeah, it's like watching the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Uh,
Well, I remember watching the remake. That was the first time I saw. I didn't see like the
mm,
original, but I kind of felt like sick to my stomach because I'm like, I, I don't know why, but it's like it just made me sick to my stomach finding out. Like I watched it, and then they said that hey, this was based off real events. Like the real family were like killing people and hiding stuff, and I'm just like,
mm.
holy wait, this really happened. And then they showed like photos of like the cops finding out about it. Like it was just holy crap.
And I don't know if it was. No, I think it was. Don't quote me on this officially, but they would take the human meat and make it into chili and sell it.
Yuck.
So
Just yuck. I
yeah,
mean, it really does amaze me. Like, and another thing too, like we talk about horror is like horror itself is pretty scary. But do you think horror can work with any genre, Kenny?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, Ghostbusters is a borderline horror movie. It's a comedy horror that worked pretty well. Um, Back in the 40s and 50s, you had Abbott and Costello meet the Mummy or meet Frankenstein in different ones, and that worked too. That was pretty scary. There was one where I think Abbott was turned into a ghost. He was killed, and I think it can fit into it. Um, you know, I've seen it in comedy, and if you can link comedy and horror, you're doing pretty well. Um, you know, classy wise, that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that, and I would even go as further and say like there's even ways to be family friendly about it, which I didn't think it was possible. But I'm big on watching like stuff like say the Adams Family.
And there were movies called "Are You Afraid of the Dark?" You've got the R.L.
Goosebumps.
Stein, yeah, R.L. Stein, yep, the Goosebumps, Jumanji. If you think about it, the original with Robin Williams,
That is a
some of the
scary.
stuff that happened, yeah. So it's been done. It's just like with everything, it's a little more difficult to mesh it all together. But if you have the right writers, and you could get good stuff out of it.
Well, yeah, and to add to your point with like that, a lot of the horror stuff I remember growing up as a kid, like I did like a lot of the Adams Family stuff, the TV show as well as the movies. I'm big into Scooby Doo, and
Yeah.
they were funny. It was as a kid, it was scary,
Uh-huh.
but now that I'm older, it's funny. But it's like even back then, like some of the stuff they talked about, like some of the direct to DVD movies they've had.
Uh-huh.
Holy crap! I didn't think that they would go as far as they did with some of those movies.
Nothing beats whenever Scooby Doo and the gang met up with Kiss, or with the Harlem Globetrotters, or Batman and Robin. That was classic Scooby Doo.
Yeah,
uh,
I don't know how to feel about the Kiss thing. That was felt kind of awkward.
but yeah, and it was Saturday mornings too, so you didn't get quite as scared um, watching them on Saturday mornings than you did, what, like it watching a movie at night, So
Yeah, and there's been also a lot of TV shows too, besides like the Adams Family that I really enjoy. The latest horror thing that I really enjoyed TV wise was Supernatural.
that's been on for quite a while, hasn't it? I mean, that's a lot of people love that show.
It's been over for some time now, but just but the run it had was incredible. I really
Mm.
enjoyed the show. Oh, I thought it was very well done, very scary. But also uh oh gosh, what was it called? The Walking Dead.
Mm.
That that was a good show for a little while. Like the idea of zombies, like the apocalypse, like that's a scary thought. Just trying to live your life the best you can, and all of a sudden you got to deal with zombies.
Yeah, and with people that you wouldn't normally link up with in real life, they put them together, and you got to deal with them as well as the zombies.
Yeah, you would think in a post-apocalyptic world with zombies everywhere, you would think humans would try to find ways to connect to rebuild society. Nope. They still would rather kill each other instead of working together to deal with the zombie issue.
Yeah, I don't think that will ever.
Speaking of trying to be scary and comedy, did you watch any of the Sharknado movies?
I actually own all of them because they were so corny. It was like, first of all, you wanted to see the guest stars for these on these movies. Um, it was like a who's who of like B movies, or like stuff out, like Jerry Springer was in it. Uh, in wrestling, Chris Jericho. You know, uh, they had some of the stupidest plots, but you're riding the wave, so to speak, and you know that it can never happen. So it's not, the horror was not really there from the second one on, but the first one wasn't too bad. I thought that was a pretty good premise, but to have as many as they did, even to have David Hasselhoff in it, oh, I mean, come on, that's a horror right there.
Well, no, I actually enjoyed those movies myself. Well, but I definitely know they weren't meant to be taken seriously because, like you said, they are B movies. So, but to be fair though, there's a lot of B movies that I've seen that I'm like, wow, if I wish these guys would get more attention because they put in the work. I mean, they really do. I mean, these low budget films, I think, in my humble opinion, don't get enough credit.
Look at some of the ones that did make it. Halloween, that was a B movie. That started out with a low budget. They had their own changing. They didn't have any changing rooms. They used a van. The person who did the lighting, was also Michael Myers. So they did. John Carpenter did everything he could to make it look, you know, like um, a stellar movie for the little amount of money that he put into it. So, um, Sleepaway Camp. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. That was a B movie, but that has become a cult classic.
Well,
Um,
Sleepy Hollow was a good one with Johnny Depp and
Oh,
Christina Ricci.
that's a must watch. Once Labor Day ends, and I start watching my horror movies until Halloween, and that's one that is a must see in my house. You got to see that at least once, especially with the volume up. The horses make their galloping noises, man, scary, scary. That's one of the one movies that they got right with redoing. You know that they did a great job with that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I still constantly watch it as well as like the early '90s like Adams Family movies. I do enjoy those still. I obviously watched like the much more realistic like horror stuff, like say like The Omen, The Shining, those movies. But I watch all kinds, like even Casper. Like remember Casper?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'll watch anything like that. But going back to like the gothic, or actually, talking about mixing up genres, there's a sci-fi has also have like, especially nowadays, like you see how the world is, and then you go back and watch some of these like old sci-fi stuff. It's like, holy crap, that's gonna be scary for me. Like for example, Demolition Man.
Hmm. Yeah,
It
and
was like a straight.
how foretelling was some of that stuff in
What was that, Kenny?
I said, how many foreshadowing did you put that came out to be actually happening now?
Yeah, like no, it's so creepy. Like it's almost like it's frightening, like how accurate some of that stuff is. And another one too, like you talk about that. Remember Alien?
Mhm.
Alien is another one where I'm like, holy crap! Like
Oh,
people like trying to look, like trying to hide stuff, off like, and then come to find out, like, and even like Terminator and Predator, like the idea of some of these things, I'm like, man, this could actually be possible someday.
mhm.
But
Happening right before your
what did
eyes.
you think of the whole? Yeah, exactly, and that's what's frightening because I'm like, I
Mm.
remember like some of these old movies back in the day where I'm like, man, this is cool, but this is a work of fiction, right? And then now that I'm getting older, I'm like, wait, this actually can be possible, and that is a scary thought. But what in your mind, Kenny? What is like if you wanted to write a horror movie, like how would you say it'd be like a proper way of going about it? At least if you wanted to write a horror movie or like a movie or literature, like or anything, like what I mean? How would you approach it?
Um, I'd I'd make a very scary opening. Um, I wouldn't uh, I wouldn't have gore or guts. I would make it very intense. I would try to keep people guessing the whole way through the movie. Um, I'd add a lot of comedy because sometimes that breaks the tension, and then after a comedic line, hit them with a horror. Kind of like set them up, and get them led up to being comfortable, and then hit them with a scare, and then have them thinking the rest of, well, okay, I've been scared already. When is he coming out with another scare? Their seat. I guess that would be the type that I'd go for, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. And in your humble opinion, who do you think did that probably the best?
Uh, I'm kind of biased. I'd say Steven Spielberg in Jaws, because you could never get comfortable once they do that first. The first scene where you don't see the shark, but you see the girl being pulled under. You can picture in your head what's going on, and you're on the edge of your seat from that moment on. It's probably the most scariest opening in a movie that there is out there.
No,
How
I
about
agree with
you?
you. Oh, for me, I would have to go back to Dracula because the the way like people like they slowly build into it. Like they think like, okay, like man, like why is this poor woman so sick? And they're like, oh, like they're trying to figure it out, and like you're still kind of feeling comfortable. You're like, okay, well, they're just trying to figure it out, and then the whole scene, probably one of my favorite scenes in the Dracula movie was when Van Helsing had like a box in his hand, like after he found out that he had no reflection. Like he's just like, "Oh, hey, excuse me, Count, if you don't mind me asking, I have this thing in my box I wanted to show you." And he opened it up, and it was a mirror, and he just like swiped it right away, and it just like you could just tell, like, oh, like he now figures it out. Once like they figured out that he's a vampire, and he realizes it, like things start to become more and more tense for the remainder of the film. So I was like, wow, that's yeah, that's pretty good. Which for me personally, if I would ever try to write a horror story, I kind of go back to my gothic roots because I'm, like I said, I'm big into like stuff like say The Crow, as well as the Underworld. I think Underworld's kind of an underrated series when it comes
Mhm.
to like the horror genre, but because yeah, sure, there's romance involved in it as well, but I like the concept of like yeah, as dark of a world we may live in, but like there can still be something beautiful in it. So that's kind of like for me personally, like that's kind of good. But then
Yeah.
so yeah, those were probably like how I would try to write it. Like there'd be like a
Mhm.
romance to it, or even like some kind of like spiritual, like religious kind of cult like thing coming going on, like a secret society that people don't know about. So those are kind of like my kind of go tos when it comes to stuff like that. But let me ask you this, Kenny: was there any like horror movies or things they've done with the horror genre that you were just like, nah, this is bad?
Oh yeah, when they try to be serious about like, um, oh, like they've really taken liberties with these shark movies. Um, they're trying to be campy and cute, but they just need to stop. It's like the uh, Ozark mountain sharks. There was Raiders of the Lost Shark, Amityville Shark. I hate when I hate these movies that are just cheap ripoffs just to try to get a buck, and with people thinking that they're going to be getting a good movie and they get basically trash.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that. But I also, even though I just talked about how I liked like some of like the romance and all that stuff when it comes involved, I hate when they try to make like say something as scary as like a vampire or a werewolf, like they try to make it into like gooey like gushy romance kind of thing, where it's like I don't know if you ever heard of a board game called L.A. by Night, the Vampire Masquerade.
No, I haven't had.
Well, it's basically like D&D, but with like a gothic theme, like
Oh,
vampires. Yeah, like
okay.
I'll use that, and even like I never seen any of the movies, but I just saw like what people have done with them, like say the Twilight stuff. Like I hate that kind of stuff because people are like, do I think it's possible for that stuff to be like for vampires or werewolves to find love and try to be at peace? Yeah, absolutely. But I also don't like the fact that they're ignoring how dangerous a vampire can be. Like, yeah, you could be a vampire that loves a human, but you also got to realize if you're not careful, you could hurt them, I mean, kill them or turn them into vampires when you didn't mean to. Like, there's still like a danger factor. I think they got rid of like the whole danger factor of it. And then when recently with the remake of Nosferatu came out, it's like, yep, that's how you do a vampire.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah,
like, and again, I'm not saying like you can't be like loving and caring as a vampire, or like I'm
yeah.
fine with it, but it's like you also you can't just ignore like, hey, you need to drink blood in order to survive.
Yeah,
And some
they soften it up and they make these teenagers think that it's more based around them, that it's a different way of having them get to teenagers, because they especially the teenage girls, it gives them something to, you know, kind of like a soft introduction into that genre.
Yeah, like I may like stuff like say like Casper the Friendly Ghost, but I also knew and learned that not all ghosts are going to be friendly. You still got to be careful with that. And I think people changing the mindset of like what a vampire is, I think was kind of a mistake. And I think I think they're slowly starting to like try to bring that back. But yeah, no, that kind of stuff kind of irritates me a little bit because it's like, there's
Yeah,
still a danger you got to live with. Like you could accidentally you couldn't control your thirst and you attack somebody and like either kill them or turn them, and you're like, I didn't mean for that to happen, but like that danger factor is there. It's not like this whole love thing that they were trying to do, I guess.
right. Yeah, my kids were into that, and as a horror fan, I just no. Sorry, I'm not buying any of this.
What?
Yeah.
Well, the thing that kind of creeps me out about it was, and you mentioned the Twilight thing. Remember those commercials like with Burger King? They were trying to convince people to like pick a side, and I'm like, these
Oh
are.
yeah.
I was like, these are dangerous creatures. Like you can't just no. It's just like, what
Oh,
do you?
I remember it too well. Team Edward and
Team Jacob, I think it was.
yeah, Team Jacob.
Uh,
Yeah.
oh, it just stuff like that. Just like no, that these are scary people. Like, not saying they can't be good guys, but it's like, come on, guys. Like, there's some scary going on here. I think that was the scary part, thinking that people thought that this was like any kind of horror. But but yeah, and like the art of like horror also didn't just it has expanded to like video games, and even music. And for me, the perfect example of that, God rest his soul, Ozzy Osbourne is no longer with us. But when Black Sabbath came out, that was kind of the introduction of like heavy metal, and they were very horror oriented lyrics when they were when they came onto the scene.
Yeah,
Can you,
definitely. And then Rob Zombie later on, he's definitely one that does the music and the movies. Some of the scariest movies that are out right now and goriest have been Rob Zombie movies. But I mean, I'll regress back into his music. If you like Dracula, that's a pretty scary song if you listen
that's
to it.
Yeah, very no, absolutely. Like especially if you listen to like what he was saying, because like I'm like listening to a song, but then like and then when you actually read the lyrics, you're like, wow. And like Black Sabbath came out with a song called Black Sabbath, which was based off a personal experience I think Geezer had. And it was just like, man, this is just, like messed up in so many ways. And it's still scary. And can you believe it's been 55 years since the first two albums of Black Sabbath came out?
Wow.
I got to re-listen to those. Thanks to YouTube, I can try to listen to like whole albums again, and it's like it's really good stuff. But and you mentioned like more music too, like Rob Zombie, Marilyn Manson was another big one for my childhood and growing up. A lot of his stuff was like scary, but like somehow entertaining.
Mm-hmm. And then if you got Kiss, of course, and Alice Cooper in the 70s and 80s. Another one was, I don't know if you how hard into metal you got, but there was a group called Guar.
Yeah, I know.
Boy, they were scary. They were freaking scary.
No, yeah, no, I'm big into heavy metal actually. And you mentioned gore. when I saw them, I was like, what on earth is this? Like they were like full on like evil alien creatures or something. And
Mm-hmm.
really a lot of metal too was kind of like that too. Like Slipknot showed up. Like there was a lot of guys wearing these like scary masks or even having like some of these dark lyrics. Like say, I mentioned Marilyn Manson had that, but Nine Inch Nails was another one that had
Iron
really,
Maiden.
yeah, Iron Maiden was like that. And you know, I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but like I think heavy metal was unjustly like depicted with some of their lyrics and like the concept of them being like evil. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because the vast majority of the lyrics people talk about is basically like, yes, it's dark, but it's also meaningful. Like they were just talking about like, look how crazy the world's becoming, like, you know, going through depression, you know, self-harming. Like they were talking about trying to overcome adversity, right? And I just absolutely hated like people saying like how evil metal is. And I'm like, if you actually again read the lyrics, it's not as bad as you think.
Well, it's like with anything. If you dig in hard enough, you could find things to move your agenda forward. Like I know some of them when some people say that Hotel California by the Eagles was about going to um, a demonic church. If you ever listen
Really?
to yeah, if you listen to it, that's what some of the people say. And um, you can break almost any song down to support your agenda if you really wanted to. Sometimes people just wrote it because you know they were trying to get um, shock value, you know, or so I guess it's all what you believe in and what you follow. If you make it that way, it's gonna be. But if you don't, it's I don't know. I can see where it has been unjustly um, criticized. You
Well,
know.
yeah. Yeah, no, I 1000% agree with you. Like going back to like the metal lyrics, like they're talking about overcoming adversity and like self harm, you know, and it's part of the reason like why I fell in love with it was because I go through that stuff. I go through mental health, and a lot of metal will like really helped me out a lot in my life. You know,
Mhm.
it's kept me sane for for the most part. And there's even Christian metal bands. They're talking about having faith and like trying to better yourself and try to create a better world no matter how dark it may seem. That's for some reason that's bad, but yet we talk about the Macarena, which was like a kid's song, and it was about a
Mhm.
woman cheating on her man.
Mhm.
It's like I was
Yeah.
like how's that work?
Mhm. Yeah. It's just crazy out there. People, if people don't like something, they'll find a way to put things behind it to try to make other people not like it. I'm with you. Like when I was growing up, I used to listen to Van Halen when they were with David Lee Roth and then Sammy Hagar. But some of that I would pump me up before I go out and participate in sports. I'd get all revved up and get feeling pretty good and ready to go. Pump me up. It. I don't know. Some people just want to go to extremes. It's just they look into things more than they really should.
Well, yeah, and it's funny you say that because here's a perfect example, Kenny. You ever heard of the band Disturbed?
Hmm.
Oh man, one of my favorite songs they ever did was called "The Vengeful One." And if you ever like, I recommend anyone that like loves music or like wants to see like you want to see stuff in the past and you see how things are now. Their song, the music video for "Vengeful One" is a perfect example of like looking back at like to society today. You're like, holy crap! Like that whole video was basically all these news media outlets like turning people into monsters because it's just spreading nothing but hate. That was like I forget what year that came out, but I was like, holy crap, like that's a perfect representation of how things are now. It just happened all these years ago.
Hmm.
So it's just like man, maybe people need to like start paying attention to more of that stuff. And, and even some of like the old stuff too, like not to get like too deep into it, but like stuff like spirituality and all that stuff too. Like people look at it as like it's like evil, but then when you actually read about it, you're like, it's actually not that bad, you know?
Hmm.
Now, don't get me wrong, there's people who have done some horrible things and it's
Hmm.
scary as heck, but it's like not everybody's like that. So it's
Right.
I don't know, what do you think make people think that? Like what makes people think like this is evil or and like this side's good, but this side's bad? And where does that all come from, you know?
Well, I think it's a person's mindset. You know, um, being out there working with different people and interviewing people, there are a couple different kinds of people. There are the black and white people
Hmm.
where they either see it one way or the other.
Right.
There's the one that sees it as gray. And then there are a few out there that you don't know why they're thinking what they're thinking. Thank goodness they're the minority. But people see things as black and white, and they don't like it, so they don't want to. Well, they don't want anybody else to like it. They want people to see what they see, and it's not always right.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like to add to your point too, like there were some things that like I think like for example, I think the world may be black and white, but I also think it may not be exactly how we think it. You know what I mean?
Yep. And that's what, going back to the horror part of it, um, you also have the same pushback with the horror movies. I've had people that say, well, you like horror movies. That must mean you believe in, or you like seeing people get killed, and you like, some of this, and some of these movies, they do a lot of demonic and evil things in the show. But that doesn't mean I'm going to turn off the TV and it's going to pollute my mind to thinking, hey, what they did was right. And I've gotten blowback on that because I like horror movies. It's like, no, I like horror movies because they entertain and sometimes they make me laugh, you know.
Yeah, no, I 1000% agree with you on that because people like gave me a weird look too because I like say like gothic and horror and all that stuff. But it's like, yeah, sure, there's scary things happening, but going back to like say Dracula, yeah, I love the performance in Dracula as a character, but we all know he's the villain. We all know the hero is Van Helsing. So like there's good people trying to do some good things, like in the world. Like I don't want to see anybody suffer. But
Right.
I also know like things happen for a reason. Like for me, The Crow, well, was basically here's a guy that was him and the love of his life were murdered for no reason other than people were just insane. And then, most people be like, well, where's the justice? Well, he gets brought back to life to avenge the justice to the people that actually brought him harm. And it was just to those people. He wasn't trying to hurt anybody else. He was slowly taking away people that hurt him.
Hmm.
Like I think people sometimes, but I think also too, it goes back to what I said before. Is I think people just don't want to admit that they have a dark side, that they could like become that, which is it's possible because, like I said,
Yeah.
we're all full of sin. We're not. Let's
Hmm.
not kid ourselves. We're not perfect. It's impossible for us to be
Hmm.
perfect. But I think people see that, and I think they're more scared of like, man, I could be that. Which I think,
Yeah,
honestly, oh, go
that's
ahead.
definitely possible. No, I was just gonna say that's definitely possible.
Because like I'm trying to remember. Oh, I'm trying to remember because like there was like sometimes like the villain and the hero they could be similar but yet they're different. If that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like I'm trying to think of an example of that, but it's like the idea of it is just like here's these people may like the same thing, but they go about it differently. And like I feel like there's a healthy way and an unhealthy way to handle things. And you know, I think that's also kind of like a lost art where it's like, yeah, that person, like there's a term in horror and mystery novels called a red herring, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And for those of you that don't know, a red herring is a character in a story where, like, if you try to dig in clues and you're like, well, this makes sense that that character did it. And then when you, at the end of the book, you realize it wasn't that character, and you're like, wait, it makes perfect sense. That person, why is he not the villain? Why is it this person? And then when you read into it more and hear someone else's point of view, you're like, oh, so yeah, I could totally see that person being the villain now. It's not always,
Mhm.
it's not, everything is not what it seems, if that makes sense.
And that's the kind of movies that you just um I hate ones where I can predict it in the first 5 minutes. I want to see what kind of twists and turns. I want to be surprised. I want to be entertained, but I also want to be surprised, and you know, I want to see something different. And whenever the movies with the red herring in it, if they hide it good enough, you can be like, oh wow, I was totally off. I thought it was this person. Okay, you got me. You know what I mean? It's almost like a mental thing.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I'll give a perfect example is like, I kind of, I guess in a way I can consider myself like a goth kid, but like, here's this, like, say for example, a character who's all in black, yes, he's into some, like, say, like Adam's Family kind of stuff. He's very much into like stuff that people don't find, quote unquote normal. And
Hmm.
people like, and he can be hard on people. He can be tough on people. People are like, man, this guy's such a jerk. He might be the one that's like doing some evil things. He's got to be. And then when you realize that it wasn't that person, he's just like someone that might just be, firm but fair kind of person. You know what I mean? It's like it just leads into more and more things where people realize, like, yeah, he might be dark, or he might be like, say, like aggressive, but he knows when to dial back, and like he's not as evil as people may think. Like, do you have any examples of that, Kenny?
I see it in a lot of TV shows, especially like your Law and Order. Well, actually, have you seen Sleepaway Camp?
I have not, but do tell.
Well, Sleepaway Camp was one of them, but I'll get you one that you've seen. Um, on Friday the 13th, the first one. You didn't
Okay.
know who the heck it was. You thought it might have been that crazy Ralph, the one that said you're all doomed. You know, um, nobody knew who that was. And there was that crazy Ralph that was going around, and people were probably thinking that it was him, but it turned out to be the mom, and nobody got that. Um, that's just one example that I can think of. Sleepaway Camp. Um, they they blamed the one teenager for doing it, but it turned out to be his cousin. And I'm not gonna go into too many details because that's a spoiler, and I know the movie's old, but the person who did it was related to him, and that's as far as I'll go. But yeah, they had you believing it was him the whole time, and it was really his cousin. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, but that's a sign of like a good swerve. Like, we're never, but I think that also affects people mentally. They're like, man, if that person does, it could be anybody. You got to really be careful who you like accuse, or who could actually be a certain person. Like, for example,
hmm
going back to the heavy metal thing, a lot of kids love listening to it because they're like, oh, wow, I can relate to this. So in a way, it kind of gives them peace of mind hearing it. Now, don't get me wrong. There's definitely some people that have done some weird stuff of just, but like it's
yeah.
not everybody. But it's just, yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think people got to be like really careful on like what they say or do. Like going back to, say, like Black Sabbath, like they actually were believers. Like they were believers, but people thought they were like these evil entities, and it's like, no, they weren't. They just were trying to tell like songs based like horror lyrics. You know what I mean? They were trying to make horror movies, but in song form.
And they were trying to be original, and at that time, that kind of music wasn't there. People forget that too. You know. It's
Right.
all about getting your music sold, being original, and selling a product. You know, and Black Sabbath did that. You know, and then Ozzy, when he went solo, he continued to do that. And then, you know, Dio came into Black Sabbath, and they continued to Black Sabbath with James Dio, right?
Yeah, James Dio. They
Or was
had
it Rodney? Yeah, James Dio.
Ronnie James Dio. Great, God
Yeah.
rest his soul. Can you believe it's been 15 years since he passed away?
Wow.
And another, actually, and not just him. 15 years ago, we lost oh my gosh, I can't believe I forget his name. I love the band. Typo Negative. Oh, who's the lead singer's name? Oh, that's gonna drive me nuts now. I should know this. Peter Steele. That's who it is. Peter
Mm.
Steele. He died 15 years ago. Like, you want to talk about like misconceptions about things. Like, here's this big, tall, vampire looking guy singing all these songs, but yet there's something beautiful out of it. And he seemed like he was a really chill guy. And like you mentioned Black Sabbath too. Holy crap. Like, one of the things that I love about Black Sabbath was they went through so many different singers throughout their career, but I still enjoyed them. I never had a problem with any of his stuff, you know.
Hmm.
But oh geez, that's I don't know. What do you think is the scariest now kind of talk about, today's world. Has there been any horror movie that you were like, man, I want to see this?
Yeah, there were a few, and one of them turned out to be, and then one of my personal favorites now, the Trick or Treat movie.
Trick
The
or
way
treat?
it's, yeah, have you seen that one?
I've heard of it, but never got a chance to
Mm.
actually see it.
I totally recommend it because it's done in a Quentin Tarantino style of um, storytelling. It mashes up 4 or 5 different stories, and they all intermingle throughout the movie. It just has great transitions, and you see one part, and then it goes into another, kind of like the Pulp Fiction. You seen that?
Oh yeah, I've seen Pulp Fiction. Yeah.
Yeah, you know how it has different stories, but they all intermingle between it.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
it's like having that, but in a horror type scenario, and that actually is one of my favorites now. Um,
It's called
it
Trick or
can get
Treat.
it's a little gory, yeah.
I
Um,
I can tolerate gore, but if it doesn't, like, if I don't get actually feel scared, or if there's not like an actual good story to it, if it's just, to me, I can understand that if it was like a B movie with like low budget, it'd just be the over the top gore stuff. But a lot of these high budget stuff that's coming out, or like mainstream movies, I'm like, come on, where's the story to it? Like, you guys have the ability and resources to do this here.
mhm.
And then another one I actually thought about, oh, I'm trying to think of that's called, I think it's called Weapons.
That's a new one. Yeah, with the kids.
Yeah. Like
Yeah, yeah.
that looks, I'm hoping to see the movie soon, but it's one of those movies that I saw the trailer and I'm like, holy crap, like that's okay. Like, there's something, the concept of it was like, wow, it was really good. And from what I'm hearing, it actually is a really good a movie by people. A lot of people are like recommending it.
Hmm.
I mean, the latest one I remember is the remake of Nosferatu, which I thought was really well done.
They've remade that a couple times, haven't they? Since the first one originally came out.
Nosferatu?
Yeah, because I think that was in early 1900s when it first came out.
Yeah, I think hold on, let me check here. I can't find it. That's gonna no, but I actually gotta find that here. But no, I'm with you. I think there was definitely I think it has actually been remade, but even the old one, like back in like the early days, that was scary. Like Nosferatu was scary. Like it just blew my mind. Like, and from what I understand, it was basically like they just took Dracula and just changed some of the names, but it still worked out pretty well.
Yeah, another one that they remade that was pretty good. I liked how they did the last three Halloween movies.
Okay.
Um, they they continued it from the first one, which is what I like. What's being 30 years later or whatever. Um, they gave respect to the original, you know, the original Halloween, and they had another trilogy with it with Jamie Lee Curtis, and it was like walking down memory lane. Now I don't know how it would be for the newer uh, horror fans just getting into it, but it was a nice little walk down memory lane for the most part. They brought back all the characters and the original people who played them.
And talking about horror and all that stuff, how about some actors that have been, even though they can play other roles, but they've done such a great job of it, like not to try to say they're typecast, but they've been very good in horror. For me, as Bella Lugosi, did I say that right? Like guys like him, uh,
Lon
Vincent
Chaney.
Ron Chaney, Vincent Price was another good one. I thought he did a tremendous. He's done a tremendous job as like in horror and anything kind of like that kind of style. Also, Christopher Lee. Many people say he did the best job as Dracula.
Luckily, he was one of the few that were able to survive being typecast because he was in a lot of he was in the Star Wars movies. Did some other stuff outside of that. So, but yeah, and the same with Jamie Lee Curtis. You know, Scream Queen there for a while. She was cast in all these scary ones like Prom Night, Halloween, um, Terror Train. There was another one. Oh, Terror Train, yeah. And she stopped acting for a while and then came back and started to do comedies and stuff. But she was going down that lane, you know, being typecast for a scream queen.
Yeah, and there was also a couple other ones. Oh, I'm trying to think of her name, but like yeah, like you said about the was it Sleepaway Camp or what was the name of it again?
Yeah, Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah, Sleepaway Camp. Angela something. I think she had a reputation for being a scream queen. What didn't she? Was her name Angela Baker? I think.
Yeah, she was in Porky's, I believe, too, if you remember Porky's.
Porky's. Yeah,
She,
I did. Hear.
yeah,
And then what's that other one? Is that lady? She's like Elvana. Did I say that right? Elvanica or what's her? I think of her name.
Elvira,
Elvira.
Mistress
Yeah,
of the Dark. Yeah,
yeah. They did all that stuff for a while, and actually, let's talk about horror stuff here real quick about like monster movies, like say Godzilla. Holy crap! Can you believe that's been over 50 years? That movie's been around
that's incredible.
like that, and oh yeah, the Nosferatu movie, the first one was over 100 years ago,
That's what I thought. It was 1900s, right?
1922.
Yeah,
But yeah, man, it's just stuff like that. Just it's an underrated genre, and for me, even though I'm kind of not big into cold weather anymore, like these next 3 months, like October, November, and December, there's going to be some fun times with me. Like holidays, holiday stuff starting with Halloween. So a lot of horror stuff's being prepped where I live. How about you, Kenny?
yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Let me ask
Uh,
you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I've got my pile of must sees before Halloween. I got a tradition where I've got to see certain movies. One of them is The Fog and Trick or Treat, and I think, well, of course, the original Halloween. That's just a couple that are must sees.
No, absolutely. And I guess the final thing we can talk about is what do you think is one of the most underrated horror stuff that you have ever seen?
Hmm. There was a time. I'm gonna say, I'm not. I can't say a particular movie, but I would say there was a an era from like 75 to like 83 or 84 where the whole world was flooded with horror movies. And a lot of them, if you sit back and watch them now, they're pretty. One of them I can remember is Hell Night with
Okay.
Linda Blair. She, her, and a couple of her um, college fraternities are locked in a haunted mansion for a night and have to get through the night in order to pledge their fraternity. And that's one of the scarier movies that I've seen. Um, but hardly anybody knows about it.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, that from that era, there are a lot of B horror movies that take themselves pretty seriously. So whenever I see it up on Prime or Tubi, the streaming systems, I'll uh, I'll link them and just if I remember or if I've watched them before or give them a try.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For me, I gotta go with actually I'm gonna go with a video game series. And it's still popular, but no one really I think it deserves more credit for like how scary it can be. And that's the Resident Evil series. That that series was straight up like wow. Like it was scary, it's scary as heck. People just and what's even scarier too is like a lot of this stuff is happening in real life. Like the whole concept of a biochemical weapon. Like people can just slip something in you and it can just turn you into some weird monster or can kill you and you just never see it coming. Like, man, that in itself is kind of frightening. Like just that is probably like a very underrated series. And I'm with you. I think there's plenty of B movies out there. I think people need to go and find and search and like see how good they are because like they put in a lot of effort. Just I wish more of the smaller guys can, come in and like get more recognition. And I'm actually, believe it or not, like The Crow, I'm actually going to talk about a comic book series I thought was really good and it's really dark and gruesome, but like in a meaningful way. And that's you ever heard of the character John Constantine?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, like that to me is just holy moly! Like just the grit of it, just the scary, just the idea of like all the monsters we
Mhm.
faced and like what humans are willing to do to like gain power or like stay ahead of everybody. Especially when it comes to stuff like magic and mysticism. It really amazes me like what people are willing to do. Ooh. And it's definitely a frightening comic book series, which I really enjoy.
Saw the movie then with Keanu Reeves.
I thought it was okay. Personally, I think I like the animated movies of John Constantine better or than the Keanu Reeves one. I thought he did okay, but I don't think he really caught like the essence of it. And that actually that reminds me of another underrated horror movie. You know who William Shatner is, right?
Yep.
He did a movie called The Devil's Reign, and I was like, "Whoa, that one was yeah, that was pretty scary." Yeah, that was pretty good, and just like I said, like there's so many like stuff out there that I wish more people could see, and honestly, there's stuff I'm trying to find too, like there's so much like old school like horror movies that people can't find no more. Like,
Yeah.
we talked about like Albert Hitchcock and all that stuff. He had a movie called Number 13 that didn't finish because of budget reasons, and people are trying to find what's left over the footage and stuff. But
Yeah. You kind of hope to find that diamond in the rough.
yeah, no, exactly. And there's like other stuff that people talk about, like again, stuff like happening in real life, and you wonder if it's ever possible. Like, do you remember the Mummy movies? With like Brendan Fraser and all that. You there, bud?
Right?
Oh,
Hello?
hey, yeah. I didn't know if you heard me. Did you ever hear of the Mummy franchise?
Yes. Yep. That was pretty good.
Yeah, and what's again like I'm big into like stuff, learning about stuff like that, and it kind of makes you wonder, like, man, like stuff that we used to think were like fairy tales and like myths. Some of it's pretty true,
Yeah.
and I
Stuff
guess
you never thought you'd never see anyone talk about, and they're talking about it now, especially with ghost stories and the paranormal anymore.
oh my gosh, like you ever watch Ghost Adventures? Some of the stuff that they pick up, like, and to be fair, they try to debunk it, but like some of the stuff they catch on their show, and like, and not just them, like other people that ghost hunt and they put on like YouTube and all that stuff, like some of the things they catch, I'm like, whoa, okay. So like, I definitely believe that there's stuff out there that nobody can explain, but it's definitely an interesting concept, and I don't know why we don't talk about it more, if I'm being honest.
Scares people. What it comes down to,
You think it's
they don't. They want to think that the world is pure, and that those things don't exist. But my belief is they do. But to each their own. But I've had stuff happen in my life that make me want to. It's like, okay, did that just happen? But that's another story for another day. But yeah, I think people are afraid of what they don't know and what they can't see.
No, I'm definitely agreeing with you on that, because I've had moments myself where like people just like they just want to ignore it, but I'm like, guys, you can't deny the the something happened. You know what I mean? Oh, and like it just I don't know. It just kind of blows my mind that people don't want to think it, and this is just my humble opinion. But I feel like if people like acknowledge that, hey, there could be something there, don't you think it would be easier to like understand and control? That way, you don't have to live in fear.
Hmm.
Like, not to get all like religious or anything, but like people say, like, talk with God and pray to God about it and be like, hey, I feel this way because blah blah blah. Maybe it's a way, like it could be a piece of who you are, but you can control it better, if that makes sense.
Sure does.
But I guess the last question I can ask, we can talk about this, because I didn't even realize we're well over an hour on this episode.
Oh, oh wow, that's going quick.
No, it is. But to be honest with you, I love it though, because it just shows how much we love horror and like a lot of the cool stuff that's happening. It if Have you ever tried to write a horror story before, Kenny?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've actually written a couple.
You should try
Um,
to get them published.
yeah, that's something that I would like to do someday. Um, but it's funny because I would write them when I was in the service. I had a lot of downtime because they stuck me in Montana, and had a lot of downtime to write. So I did some different stories, and one of them was a horror movie. But a lot of it's also, was kind of like spoofing off of Friday the 13th or ideas I got from different horror movies and stuff. But yeah, how about you?
Yeah, I actually I haven't written any like that in a while, but I remember when I was really going through depression, and I started writing about things, and I didn't really realize it until I looked back on it, and I'm like, it started, you talk about like what we said before about like wondering like things about yourself that you'd never thought of. I was writing some stuff that made me like wonder. I'm like, whoa, okay. Like I'll just say it's like a gothic romance kind of style story that I wrote. Now that was kind of scary, but it was kind of like I was more scared of the fact that I'm like, how did I think of this?
Hmm.
But at the same time, it's like comforting, and maybe
Hmm.
that could be a story for another time, but kind of sticking to myself when it comes to that stuff. But yeah, no, the idea of like, I think horror is, like I said, just an underrated genre that I think people just, I think it deserves a lot more respect than I think it's given.
I totally agree.
But with that being said, maybe hopefully we get to do this again another time, Kenny. But thank you
Oh,
so
anytime you want me on, I enjoy this. Thank you.
no, thank you so much. And it's always good to talk with somebody about horror and all that stuff, especially, this month.
Yeah, yeah.
And hope you enjoy the horror month to you, Kenny, as well as many others. And just once again, thank you, Kenny, for coming on, and for all of you watching, thank you so much, and love you all, and God bless. Be safe, everybody.
Night, everybody.